Hey everybody, welcome to another episode of Tubby Talk, the show where we talk about video games here in the beautiful Manayunk, here in the beautiful establishment owned by these cats. Why don't you tell them what the establishment is?
It's the Tubby Robot Ice Cream Factory. I'm Chris.
I'm Steve.
And I am Terry Leahy with Terry Leahy Films, and we're doing this podcast thing. Today we are going to talk about a topic that's near and dear to my heart, which is mascots that didn't make it. There were plenty of times throughout the 90s especially, probably in the Super Nintendo, Sega Genesis days, where characters were introduced that were trying to be the next Mario or trying to be the next Sonic for their particular brand. And a lot of them didn't work. So we're going to talk about some of our favorites today, and I'll let the guys start us off.
Yeah, the one that comes to mind immediately for me, I really love this game. It was a game on the Super Nintendo called Plok. Was that what you were going to talk about too?
No, but I know it.
Yeah, Plok was...
I don't know this one.
Plok was
Plok?
Plok.
Or Ploks.
P-L-O-K.
P-L-O-K.
So he was a character whose arms and legs could come off. Similar, sort of, to Rayman, which is another one that one could mention. But yeah, Plok was cool in that it had, every time you threw your arm at something, you'd lose that arm or leg.
Yeah.
So at some point, like, you threw both arms, he just has two legs, you throw your leg, and he's hobbling on one leg. And when you throw his final leg, he's bouncing on just his butt.
Yeah, and you can't do anything in that mode.
Yeah, well, you can jump around, but it's worse.
You can't hurt anyone, right?
No hurting anyone.
Yeah, that was an interesting game because that was a game that had, I don't know, like Mega Man style mechanics where you had to use like projectile weapons, which for a platformer is a little strange.
Yeah.
During that time, but you could do it. I distinctly remember that. Was he from Plok World?
I don't remember what the name of the world was.
Did he have a dog?
No.
Why was he on the journey? There was a lady Plok.
No.
There...
See, there was him, so in the beginning, he loved his flag. His whole thing is that he loves flags of his head. And he puts up his favorite flag of his head, and it's not there. And somebody's stolen them. And the evil people in this are the fleas, and they're these blue creatures with two legs and two eyes.
So they stole his
flag
from his face, and he got really upset.
Yeah, so he
He's
goes
just an extremely patriotic guy.
From stage to stage, going to flagpoles, trying to find his flag.
Let me throw something at you. Yeah. Is that it?
That's that's it. That's the end stage jingle.
That's
you got
awesome.
It exactly. And it was really funny. It had writing in it that was good. There's this whole series, this world where he falls asleep and he dreams that he's his grandfather. So the whole world is in black and white. And it plays this old-timey, like, ragtime music, and...
I never got that far.
Oh, it's so good. It's all subtitled.
He's got like a beard or something,
He
right?
looks just like Plok, only he's got a mustache.
Mustache.
Yeah, so he's going around, and you're Plok's grandfather. He's playing this, like, ragtime. It's amazing. The music in the game, no joke. Look up the soundtrack. One of the best in the Super Nintendo, bar none.
Yeah.
Really good.
I think it was a pretty hard game. I don't think I could get past the second world.
I never beat it.
But I remember the boss of the first world were these two brothers that were just like a pair of lips.
The Bobbins brothers.
What?
Do you know the name?
I know the name. I know a little
It
bit
was a
something
pair
about
of lips with overalls.
Yep.
And they were giant, just jumping around.
It was good. All the enemies were weird. All the bosses were weird. And I love the 90s had all kinds of... They embraced that weirdness. And one that works, actually, that kind of is still going, sort of limping, Earthworm Jim.
Oh, yeah.
Earthworm Jim was a weird mascot platformer. I wouldn't know. I don't know if I'd say it failed, but he's not really
spawned
kicking.
like 2 or 3 sequels.
Yeah.
There was Earthworm Jim 2, there's Earthworm Jim 3D.
Well, yeah, that's the problem. You go to 3D.
Wasn't he also a guest fighter in Clay Fighter at some point?
Clay Fighter 63 and a third. Yeah.
Yeah, the thing about Earthworm Jim is I loved Earthworm Jim. I loved his cartoon series. It had one of the best intro
I watched
theme
that
music
a lot.
ever.
Kids WB.
Yep, Kids WB. Earthworm Jim. So
it's just a true. Yeah, I know the word.
But the yeah, he was great, and the problem is Earthworm Jim 3D is not a working game. You cannot actually get past a certain point.
Really?
They forgot to put something in the game.
Oh, man.
So you're collecting golden udders, and one of them, it isn't there. You can't find it. So unless you have like a Game Shark for you N64 kids out there, you can't get to the next level. There's a part where it just stops.
No one's ever beat that game legitimately.
I don't think so.
That's crazy.
Ultraviolet and QA got fired for that one.
Yeah, that's really bad.
But I remember logging hours and hours and hours and looking it up, and it's like GameFAQs.com. Like, It should
Where
be
is
right
it?
here. And I looked right there, and it was like, it's missing from my map. And it wasn't just me that happened. The cool thing about that game was the boss traditionally was that crow.
Psychro.
Psychro, yeah.
And in this one, it was Earthworm Kim, which was a female Earthworm Jim. And that was it. I ended up looking that up years later. But it's a shame that didn't make the leap. I feel like that character would work right now.
Yeah, I know they brought it back as an HD remaster a couple
Yeah,
times.
Xbox 360, I remember playing it. It was very hard.
Well, yeah, the thing about the games was like they were fun to play, but they weren't polished.
Right.
Like it was a bunch of like just chaotic, random creativity thrown out, and like the gameplay kind of took a secondary role.
Well done.
Yeah,
The cows.
well done. Well,
Especially the shape of platforms. Oh god, especially in the Earthworm Jim. You see this beautifully like rendered, drawn like platform where the edges not match up with the actual image.
No, not at all.
So you'd have like 6 pixels or so, which in an SNES era game was unheard of.
Yeah, it's like a half inch.
1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. That far, kids.
Like, so you're like, oh, I made this jump, and you fall right through the platform to your death repeatedly. And you're like,
yeah.
oh, wait, I might not be good at Earthworm Jim. And you realize later as you play more games, like, no.
It's one of those
a poorly
games like
designed game.
you love the characters and you love the story and the setting and the jokes, but like the game, it's not that great.
There was ammo for some reason, even though you like never ran out. But there was that one gun that was just giant, and when you pulled it out, you all started shaking, and then the whole thing went white, and he just fell on his ass and was just kind of sitting there like, what happened? I liked all the jokes. There was this one thing you could do if you hit a certain button combination, and he would go Manta, and his hands would come out, and there'd be a shield in the shape of a manta ray.
Oh,
There
wow.
must be 2.
There's
there was
no
something.
reason for it to be there. None. It does nothing. It's just this thing. Manta! I remember it so clearly. But, okay, so, but as far as the topic, so Earthworm Jim, what was he representing? Interplay? Was he trying to be the mascot for them?
I don't think he was trying to be a mascot of a specific company so much.
Was Plok?
He was Shiny Entertainment, was the developer of that.
Shiny.
Yeah.
And then what was Plok?
Plok was made by, God, I don't remember. I dropped the ball on my Plok knowledge there.
You had quite a bit. You knew the name of an enemy.
I know the name of a lot of the enemies in there. I can hum most of the music I listen to unironically, like in the car. It's good.
Nice.
There's this one, so
Kids, this is off a 94 Plok.
there, in that game,
Great album.
you would get power-ups in that game, which would change your costume and your ability, and you get a different song. And one of them I remember being proud of as a Philly, it was Plocky, where he turned into Rocky. He basically put.
I remember.
He would
and he could shoot a million boxing
infinite
gloves.
infinite boxing gloves. And it would play this like bastardized version of the Rocky theme. It was awesome. Yeah.
Well, Steve, we kind of monopolized that one. What do you got as far as characters, mascots who never quite made it?
Well, I'm 99% sure he was intended to be a mascot, and he definitely didn't make it. But Boogerman
Oh God.
Sure.
was around in that era. I believe that was one of the games that had a different game for SNES and Genesis. It was the same character, but slightly different stages, maybe. But
Like Aladdin.
Yeah. So he's basically like this, like slubby looking dude, had like a giant jaw, unshaven, like Homer Simpson style, and he was wearing like a domino mask and pajamas. Where I think the butt was even like flapped out.
Yes.
And he had a like cape that was like a tablecloth tied around his neck. And he was just the grossest superhero.
Yeah. So because of Nintendo Power, I know that his real name was Snotty Ragsdale. And he was a millionaire.
That is amazing.
He was a millionaire who would go into his alternate dimension as Boogerman to be where he could be a superhero, where by picking his nose and throwing it at people. He would drink milk to hawk loogies. That was one of his special abilities.
Yeah, that was one of the power-ups. Yeah,
He had the fart and the flame fart.
I remember the fart. Didn't the fart help you extend your jumps? It was like a hover
I
type
never
thing,
played
I think.
it. See this? I know more about this game than I should, having never
So
played
funny.
I've never played it either, to be honest. But I just remember a friend of mine had it. And I'd watch him play it every now and then. And then I'd read about it in Nintendo Power and Electronic Gaming Monthly because those were my main sources for entertainment. Back then, we didn't have YouTube.
No.
That's right. That's crazy. I also remember reading it in Nintendo Power, and I can remember the poster that said a pick and flick adventure.
Yes.
And I remember that poster, and I was like, I want this game so bad. And it didn't come to the video store near where I was, so I never got to play it.
It was that era of like gross out humor in kid stuff, like
Yeah, Ren
right
and
along with like
Stimpy.
Ren and Stimpy, a lot of the Nickelodeon everything, like slime is everything.
Yeah, speaking of, on the same track, speaking of mascots, this mascot did succeed, but there was a Yoshi's Island for Super Nintendo. The commercial for that was one of the grossest commercials ever.
What happened in that commercial?
So in that commercial, there was this guy who just loved food, and he just had a table full of food. Just like, he wasn't that big when he started, but he started just shoving food in his mouth, and his belly started getting bigger and bigger and bigger. And he eats
Like morbidly.
Yeah, and then he's like, and meanwhile they show Yoshi's Island like gameplay in the background. Yoshi's eating fruits and everything. And then he says, cream puff, and shoves it in his mouth and explodes.
Yeah, like his
And they
stomach
show,
explodes.
and they show the CRT showing, playing Mario, Yoshi's Island, and suddenly there's just like goop all over the screen. Like, it's like white, like vanilla icing.
It's horrifying.
Yeah, and then it was like, yeah, and the tagline was something related, having to do with eating too much, which was where the impetus for the commercial came from. But it was very gross and
Yeah,
execution.
that was Nintendo trying to be too edgy.
Trying to be edgy. That
yeah,
was
it's like,
yeah.
we're going to be as edgy as Sonic the Hedgehog, man. No
Nintendo
problem.
was trying to do what Nintendo don't, and
Whoa.
it didn't work.
The one that I always think of is from a company called Aerosoft, and they had Aero the Acrobat.
Oh,
Oh,
yes.
For the Super Nintendo and the Sega Genesis, and it's just the lamest platform ever. He's not fast. He can't do anything.
He can kind of glide, I
He-
believe.
Yes, he
Yeah.
can glide a little bit. But it's one of the worst knockoff games like ever.
See, I always looked at that one and thought, hey, that might be a
Yeah.
fun gameplay because of the gliding.
That's because of what they did to you.
Well, looking at it in Nintendo Power, it looked dynamic and awesome. and
That's
fun.
right. Because I'm sure they paid a lot of money to be featured. But the funny thing about that one is that spun off a game called Zero the Kamikaze Squirrel.
I do remember Zero.
So it was kind of like, okay, Eero didn't work. Maybe Zero will now be the mascot for Aerosoft. And then the company folded, and see you later. But that is one of like, that. It was so painfully obvious that they were trying to make Sonic.
Yes.
So obvious. Like,
yeah.
even the way he stood, that he was like a cool, hip guy and whatnot. And it just fell flat.
Oh, yeah. I mean, even the design of his face, like,
Yeah.
it's very, very similar.
He's got to lean to the side against the wall and was thinking like, chili.
Not
chili dogs, just chili.
Yeah.
It's like, eventually, I'll be a sexy bat named Rouge. Sonic Adventure 2.
Okay, now speaking of,
If he pulled out a poster of Rouge, I would lose my mind. That'd be the greatest thing ever. That'd be the greatest shot at Sega. They'd have to do it 12 years later, but that was
oh
awesome.
man, speaking of flying rodents who were trying to be Sonic the Hedgehog, Rocket, David, what's the name?
Rocket Raccoon.
No, it wasn't Rocket
It was
Raccoon.
Rocket Knight Adventures.
Rocket Knight
Rocket Knight
Adventures.
And then
Adventures.
it was called Sparkster on the Super
Yeah.
Nintendo.
So his name was Sparkster, and he was some kind of rodent.
It was like a possum or
I
something.
think it might have been a possum, and he had like a blue suit of armor with like the old style like armored grill that comes down over his face and everything. He had a jetpack, and his whole thing was he would jetpack through the stages, and you try to pick up power ups and like pickups like coins and things like that, while you're jetting through them as different trajectories. It was not handled very well control wise, but it was just a blast. Pun intended. So you just kind of like launch them across gaps, and you kind of hoped you made it. You maybe made it. It depends on how forgiving that stage was at the time. But a lot of the boss battles, if I remember correctly, although I did play the remake that came out on Xbox 360 and I get PS3, I don't know if they changed it up or if it's a direct remake. But a lot of the boss fights used to be like you would have like permanent boost, and you have to try to like dodge bullet attacks, like a bullet hell game. And you had to kind of like just keep pace with the boss and dodge any projectiles thrown your way, dodge any walls, and then pop the boss a couple times and they're down.
So you like that game?
I liked it enough that I remembered it fondly. And when it came out for 360 in the remake, I was like, you know what, I'll try it again. And I played it for 10 minutes and never touched it.
Yeah.
So there was speaking of Sega, there was a character that essentially kind of was the other mascot to Sega, and that was Echo the Dolphin.
That's one of them, yeah?
Because, I mean, it was on every system, right?
Yeah, it's on.
There was definitely one on Saturn.
Just
there was
as
one on
Echo 3D was
Dreamcast,
on
right?
Saturn. I think I don't remember. They might have been planning one on Dreamcast. If it was, I don't remember it.
I have
I'm
no
not the
idea
Dreamcast
what
expert,
that
though,
game
so I
was
don't know.
about, for the record. I just knew you could shoot.
There was some kind of
Like,
evil thing. There was a
mine
shark
things.
maybe or something, or
It's supposed to
drillers.
be like
I remember fighting a
impossible
whale, but all we were doing was going up and cool and then jumping in the air and doing some loops and then shooting something out of the nose until we got bored and returned the game because no one actually bought that game.
Yeah.
But
That sounds about right.
They hit Echo hard. They tried to keep him going.
You're right. You know, I do think the Dreamcast game was actually launched at some point.
Oh, wow.
They kept him going for a little while.
You tried.
Yeah, and then Sega stopped going.
Lasted longer than Gex.
Yeah. Gex. Oh, gosh. So his whole thing was that he's a lizard, a gecko, who spouts one-liners from television shows and movies. That's all he did, right?
Yeah.
That was his thing.
So bad. Not fun.
They made him.
Didn't Homer voice him?
Oh,
Did Dan Castellan? No, Gex was Dana Gould.
That's right.
I remember that because that's the first time I heard of Dana Gould, and I found out he was like a comedy legend or something, and I was like, oh,
well, Gex
he's
was
Gex's voice. Awesome.
Gex was supposed to be the mascot for the 3DO.
Whoa!
And then the 3DO tanked, and then they ported it to a whole bunch of other things, and everyone's like, why would you play this game?
PlayStation, I believe, PS.
Note to self, don't step on any brown squishy rocks. That was definitely in the Gex 64?
Yeah, there was a
there
Gex
a Gex
64, yes.
I was thinking of Dan Castellaneta voiced Earthworm Jim in Earthworm Jim 3D.
Yeah.
Oh, I didn't know that.
Yeah, he had a line where anytime you'd walk in a level, he would say something, and one of them's like, Cheese World or whatever, and he goes, the Tex-Mex the time forgot. So not very funny. Who knows who wrote it, but that's stuck there forever in my brain.
Speaking of mascots with catchphrases, the archetype of them all, Bubsy.
What could possibly go wrong?
Yeah. So Bubsy was the kind of the archetype of manufactured wannabe mascot. Came out for Accolade. The company. I actually watched a documentary on it recently.
What?
Yeah. How? So it's the short one. It's like a Do You Know Gaming thing about Bubsy. But it basically, like, the creator of Bubsy really wanted to do a platformer, and they weren't known for platformers. They were known, I think it was Siphon Filter. They were doing some kind of like stealth game.
Siphon Filter was after that was PS.
Yeah, it was
so before
something.
that, but
it was some. They were known for some other type of game. It was like, I really want to do a mascot platformer, and like just kept pushing hard for this baby of his was Bubsy, and they came up with it, and they put this huge marketing push behind it. Apparently, like, there was a cartoon that was on. They spent millions of dollars promoting Bubsy, and did not recoup that. Is what it sounded like.
At all.
I mean, they did make a second Bubsy. They tried again. The problem was the game.
Was it released, Bubsy 2?
Yeah, Bubsy 2 was released. Bubsy 3D was also released, and that killed the franchise for good. Until now.
I was about to say, talk about a Kickstarter or some kind of other like revamp. Was it Kickstarter? Or was it just?
I don't know if it was a Kickstarter. Okay. It might have been. But yeah, Bubsy 1. It was he was a bobcat.
Yep.
And
the shirt with the B on it, right?
His shirt had an exclamation point.
Exclamation point. Okay.
His thing for some reason was he could glide despite not having wings.
Yeah, like this.
Being a bobcat.
Yeah, being a bobcat. He collected balls of yarn and he made cat puns constantly.
Yeah, and the creatures were like weird little.
The woolies.
Woolly.
Yes, very imaginative. So this game, it was another one where the character is very large and the stage is very large and it scrolls fast. But the control was horrible. So he would, it was like running on ice the whole time. So it was a platform with terrible platforming stuff.
That seems to be the common thread.
Yeah.
All these failed mascots.
Well, it was one of those things where games back then loved parallax scrolling with the backgrounds, which is when the background is moving at a different rate than the foreground. And that looks cool. But these games would launch your character high in the air where you couldn't see the ground. You would only see the parallax background moving.
That's right.
So you couldn't tell what was going on. You were going like 50 miles an hour, the clouds like this, and then you get hit by things that are going much, much faster.
I will say, for as much as people shit on that game, I do have fond memories of it. Like, and it's probably just the age I was at. Like, it was just like, ooh, this is fun. And
you were bouncing around.
Something you got to rent from the video store.
Yeah.
Play through and then actually be able to finish because it was complete.
I don't think I finished that game. I think I could only get through like 2 levels or whatnot. I think it was another one of those where the difficulty ramps insane after like a certain level because maybe the developers just didn't want to work so hard at the end of the game, so they didn't want you to get there maybe? I don't know.
It was one of those annoying games where there would be something that would like take you back to the beginning of the level if you step in the wrong place. You step in one place and there would be a slide, and then you'd be back at the beginning. You'd be like, "What?
No
why?"
wonder it failed.
Yeah, and the sort of thing where there are walls and platforms you can walk through for no reason sometimes.
That's right.
That sort of stuff that's annoying. But yeah, they made a sequel, which was a very similar game. But then they made the third one was 3D. Garbage game. Garbage game by any account.
God.
Terrible control. So Bubsy this was the same month that Super Mario 64 came out.
Oh, wow.
The same month?
Yes.
Oh.
So Bubsy comes out and they're like, hey, 3D is cool, it's new, it's on the PlayStation 1, it's amazing. And he walks like a tank. He's
oh, God.
Yeah, it's tank control. It's Resident Evil 1 control on a Mascot platformer. It looks...
With the jump?
Yeah, with a jump. With jumping on, like, squares floating in the sky for no reason. With that, and then Mario 64 comes out, and you see the way Mario moves, and they knew, the second they saw Mario 64, they're like, well, we're boned.
I remember one of the first responses to Mario 64 was Spyro the Dragon.
Yes.
Which
Still kicking.
Was fine, dipped, and then they came out with Skylanders, and
surged.
boom.
Yep.
What is it with kids and collectible things?
Well, now that they've
Spyro invented Amiibo, essentially.
Oh, well, it was between them. I guess Skylanders would be the biggest example of that first. The Toys to Life was huge. It's dying now. Everything but, I mean, the Amiibo's still kicking, but they shut down Disney Infinity.
That's right.
Shut down Lego Dimensions. And Skylanders has drastically decreased.
Because they made 8 million games in 2 years.
Yeah, it's kind of suffering. It's a very similar arc to the rhythm game explosion from a decade ago. When Rock Band came out, Guitar Hero came out, they started releasing 4 rhythm games a year. People stopped buying rhythm games.
It's true.
Ran out of closet space for all those plastic instruments.
But I digress.
So back to the topic at hand. So Bubsy 3D was a horribly executed game.
Yes. Like, by any means, Bubsy 3D was just bad. And PS1 era graphics, trying to make that happen, it's not going to fly.
It's true.
Yeah. Now, speaking of games, failed mascots, at least as far as video game mascots go, they had very good gameplay, very good animation from what I remember. I don't remember if the game was any good. But it had solid gameplay compared to the other mascot games. It was Cool Spot.
Yeah.
On the Sega Genesis, and it was the 7-Up mascot, which was the 7-Up Spot with sunglasses and like arms and legs. And
literally
just, like,
a red dot with sunglasses.
And in his game,
stuff, right? Through stars?
He would throw stars like out of his hands. You'd pick up bottle caps as like collectibles in the game.
Yeah.
Everything looked like pixeled watercolor art.
It was artful, right?
It was very artful.
The background.
His animation, his walk cycle was like
30
30 frames. He like walked around and like his whole body like was animated. The spot was like 3-dimensional,
like you would see,
represented like 3-dimensional, and he would like twist
shades on the whole time.
Yeah, and he would like it was amazing, but there was just I could never get past like the first stage because there was no indication as to what you were doing.
It's true.
Blast enemies, leave the screen, scroll back, enemies are back. Blast them some more, nothing drops. You're just kind of like, this looks really cool and it's a beautiful game. It's ultimately meaningless.
Probably one
better than the Chester Cheetah game, though.
Oh yeah,
Chester Cheetah game. Oh God, I don't.
It's supposed to be really, really bad. I have yet to play that one myself.
It's horrendous. But I rented it 3 times as a kid. I remember.
It's like that was one where like select button was an integral part of the gameplay.
I think so. And I just remember him dying all the time and like having the slowest death cycle where he'd be like, like he would get up, face you, and then fall down.
Did it make you love Cheetos? Did you? Yeah, you love.
Well,
Cheetos.
I already did. So it was fine. It was fine. But
how did Chester Cheetah's games compare to the? I don't know if you were still gaming at this point. The Burger King games. There were like 3 of them.
The Xbox 360 had 3 or 4 cross-promotional games come out.
They were quick little games, though, right? They
were not full-size games, but they weren't like micro games either. Like they were.
One was like a kart racer or something.
Yeah, big bumping.
there was Sneak King.
Sneak King is the one most people remember.
Is the stealth game.
I feel like I remember that.
Yeah.
I feel like I remember playing that.
It's like a
you play as the king, sneaking and surprising people with burgers. Apparently, like a really funny thing to play for 5 minutes, but never touch it beyond that.
That's funny. You know what's funny about Cool Spot, though? Not his only game. He had another game called Spot on the Game Boy.
Oh, wow.
That was just like a weird, like, card flipping, some sort of like, it was weird. It was like a pinochle type game type thing. It was very, very strange. But
it was 7-Up branded too?
Yeah.
Wow.
It was about the Cool Spot. It was about the Cool Spot. He was a Cool Spot.
So cool, he had 2 games.
Yeah, we've kind of segued over into kind of marketing Mascot, who also had games. And that reminds me of Yo Noid on the NES.
Yeah.
They made a video game about this is Domino's Pizza, had a mascot called the Noid.
I bet that's coming back soon.
The whole thing was avoid the Noid because the Noid was annoyance personified. And you would be annoyed if your pizza got there cold, and he would mess up your order. And Domino's would save you from the Noid because your pizza would not be cold and it
You'll
would
get
not
there
be
in 30
messed up.
minutes or it's free. I think that was your motto at the time, so he kind of went along with that.
And his whole thing was he had a pizza stomper, which is a pogo stick with a weight on the end of it to smash pizzas. That's what the whole game was about. Yeah, quality.
One company that really kicked ass with their mascot is Disney, of course. The Mickey Mouse games on the Super Nintendo are fantastic. The
Castle of Illusion.
Castle of Illusion is great. It's like you get different powers, you get to do fun things, you're climbing, you have different types of platforming you do in each level, which is always fun.
Fantasia level, I believe, in that game. At least in the Genesis one, I don't know if it was in both versions.
I specifically remember one where you get like a climbing outfit. And you're like climbing in the wilderness, and the boss there is like the thing that rolls, and you have to like jump up and use like a hook shot type contraption to do it. It's a great game. Mickey Mania was also a great game. In later years, what was the one for the Wii that was?
That was Epic Mickey.
Epic Mickey was very good.
Yeah.
With Oswald the Lucky Rabbit.
That's right.
It's his first time back. But the cool thing about those games is in both sequels, they were 2-player. Like you can have a lot of fun playing a not so great platformer if you got a buddy involved.
Yeah.
If you can both be on the screen at the same time. Which brings up Data East. You remember Data East?
Yes.
Do you remember Joe and Mac?
We just had that here. Yeah.
Really?
Yeah, we were playing Joe and Mac on Wall of Vision here at Tubby Robot.
It was called, the arcade version was called Caveman Ninja.
Yep.
What?
Yep.
And the game, so
Is the charge move in that?
Yes.
Yeah.
Because it's not in the Super Nintendo version.
Okay.
Yeah, there's a couple things they cut out just because they couldn't fit everything onto the Super Nintendo.
Joe and Mac was too huge for the Super Nintendo.
But it was on the Sega Genesis one. Like you could do the charge move.
Yeah. And yeah, that game, I loved that game as a kid growing up. And then I tried to find it later on, with the advent of emulators, and you couldn't find Joe and Mac because it was called Caveman Ninja. But there's a Joe and Mac 2 for the arcade, which is Bubble Bobble, but with Joe and Mac. If you're looking for the original platformer side-scrolling where you fight dinosaurs and you save your friends and you save the hot, cave woman at the end, none of that.
Right, that's all it was
You
about.
walked around with a sack and you threw a sack over people's heads, like troglodytes' heads, and you throw them into a wall.
Now,
you get points.
Do you know that there is a Joe and Mac 2?
yes.
Yeah.
And that you could ride dinosaurs in it?
Yes.
On the console, I want to play that now because it sounds like that's
so
awesome.
fun. To me, it was an improvement. But I remember going back and playing the Sega version of it and liking it a hell of a lot more than the Super Nintendo one. Super Nintendo one had parts that were just too damn hard unless you had another person. The Blue Devil at the end, the one that like steals your woman, that is a really hard boss fight. That is a tricky fight. But in the Genesis one, because you can do that charge shot, it's so much easier. But in Joe Mac 2, you get all sorts of new powers and whatnot.
Oh, nice.
And it's a fun game. But I believe they were trying to make them the Data East duo.
Yeah, I think they were trying to push that. And that really brings in, there's a whole realm. Steve and I were talking about cavemen mascot platformers. There
Like
was a whole
Bonk.
series of Bonk.
Bonk!
The mascot for the TurboGrafx 16.
16, yeah.
By NEC. It was a good game.
It's a great game.
It's
the
really
little
good.
flip move, and as long as you don't land on your head, you're fine.
And it's weird. It's really weird, and that's what's kind of lovable about it. Like in the first stage, I don't know if at some point in the first world, you go inside a dinosaur's mouth and you fight through its stomach, and you have to beat up its tonsils. Like, it's cool.
Weren't there parts of that game though where like you couldn't exactly die? You could just go into rage mode.
Yeah, when you eat beef. Every time he eats meat for some reason, he gets angrier and darker. And when you eat
his face has turned red, and he gets like steam, like
and scars on his head.
Like
and,
I think there were those anger marks, like the
classic
veins,
anime.
Yeah.
And when you get angry enough, you're invincible. And when you're like just beyond that, if you do a head bonk on the ground, it freezes all the enemies. Like you get different abilities depending on how angry and dark you are.
I remember Super Bonk, and I remember that was a fun game.
Yeah, that came out late too. That was well past like the TurboGrafx existing.
Yeah.
Because they were like, we got to make a Bonk game, but there's no TurboGrafx. Hey, there's an arcade Bonk too.
Am I misremembering some sort of leopard?
I don't remember a leopard specifically.
He had
vacuum.
wait, a different game with a leopard with a vacuum or a Bonk.
I'm thinking of Blinks.
Oh,
Blinks
the
is
Time
Time Sweeper.
Sweeper.
Yeah.
there are so many mascots. Like, we've already talked about like 20, 30 of them, but
Yeah.
I feel like there's got to be hundreds. Who's like coming up with all of these?
I don't know, but it was the thing to do. It was like, we're going to get the video game, then we're going to get the cartoon series, then we're going to get the system. Although they were doing it like out of order. They were launching these systems no one was asking for.
Just to come up with more mascot opportunities.
Yeah.
Because Mario did so well, and Alex Kidd for the Sega Master System did not.
Right.
Even though I don't even know if
It's
they
a
were
tricky
pushing for
name.
him to be a mascot, but he was like the first like personified like character on the Sega Master System. So people compared him unfairly to Mario. Mm-hmm. And of course, he was found wanting.
Yeah.
But first of all, like you said, his name, Alex Kidd, sounds like some kind of pun, but there's not really a pun there. He's just a kid named Alex. Like,
You're right.
it's like if his name's Ron Johnson. He's just running around fighting. Like, okay.
Why was his name like Magic Kid? Because there was a Magic.
There was Wonder Boy.
Wonder Boy.
Wonder Boy, yeah.
Wonder Boy. They recently made a remake of Wonder Boy 4?
It was like 4, which was itself a remake of Wonder Boy 2.
It's very
The-
confusing.
the, all the,
the timeline of
timeline's
Wonder
really
Boy is
mixed up.
confusing, but it's called Wonder Boy in Monster Land, I believe. It's the remake. It's beautiful. They redrew it, and it looks like it's very Bill Watterson, Calvin and Hobbes sort of style, but
Cool.
amazing animation, and they redid all the music with real instruments. It's beautiful,
Yeah.
and I just beat it recently on the Switch. Great game on the Switch if you want something to play for like 10 hours.
And in that game, can you switch between the original graphics and the new one?
Yes, in
On the
real
fly?
time, on the
Yeah.
fly.
That's pretty neat.
Yeah, if you like pop in the joystick, you can switch the music too.
Oh.
So the music can go 8-bit and real style, and then it has all of these featurettes in it when you beat the game. There's movies that show like musicians playing it because they're like, hey, here's a cellist playing the theme from Monster Boy. It's awesome.
Cool.
So yeah, just watching a video of it is enough to get the taste. It's so
Yeah.
I bought it on the art alone. I was like, this art is so good. I don't care if the game's garbage, but the game's good.
You know what I rented on the art alone?
What's that?
Glover.
Glover. The art and Glover?
You can like go on a ball, man.
And this was an N64 mascot.
No, he actually
platformer.
ran like this, didn't he?
Yeah, it was
So he had like
two
arms.
middle. Yeah. Glover was a hand that you controlled as a figure, a person.
Yeah, not Master Hand either.
Not master hand.
And
At
it
all.
like, wasn't like a cursor where like you move him around, he grabs things. You
no,
just, like,
he was.
No,
he was
would
Mario.
run. He was a glove.
Yeah.
And I believe he was looking for the other glove.
Oh, really?
Was the whole point of it.
Oh,
was
that's
like we
actually
lost
sort
his
of
glove.
sad.
It's a prequel to Super Mario Odyssey.
Yeah.
Yeah, oh man, so
No, it was Master Hand and Crazy Hand from Smash Brothers.
Yeah.
oh man, yeah. Speaking of mascots based on art alone, I remember seeing this one. It was called Rocket Raccoon, and it was just like he looked like a Simpsons character, like in art style, and he
Rocket
had.
Raccoon? Are you sure?
I think it was Rocket Raccoon.
Rocket
No,
Road.
Rocky Rodent.
Rocky Rodent. Sorry,
Rocky
Rocky Rodent. And he had just like this flame-shaped and colored like dew, and it was just like red hair went up to a point, and he looked like a strawberry dipped ice cream cone. It was very weird.
It looked like somebody scrawled something out and was like, draw a cartoon character.
They're
Done.
like, here's one, and then they just put down the box art.
It sounds like a treasure character.
I don't think it was Treasure because the gameplay, if I remember correctly, was garbage.
For some reason, that brings to mind Harley's Humongous Adventure, which was a mascot platformer about a normal human being who was shrunk, and the whole game was like basically Honey, I Shrunk the Kids without the license. But running
man.
around, you're Harley. He's wearing a green jumpsuit, and you are jumping over mice and stuff.
You just made me think of, speaking of green, I think Sega made another play for that Sonic was going to be their 2D mascot, but that they were going to have a 3D type mascot named Vector Man.
Yeah,
yeah.
Vector Man came out on the Sega Genesis. He was like 3D, like
He was
3D over 2D.
yeah.
It was a lot like Balls, the fighter, where
Yeah.
all the characters are composed of balls that moved around in a semi 3D
Yeah.
environment. It was still a 2D side scroller.
Yeah,
Though.
Vector Man was much better than Balls though.
Well, that's not hard.
Like Vector Man was actually a pretty competent game. And like I believe the mechanic was more his ammo was his body maybe, or am I mistaken?
Was it the Sonic team that built him?
It was a Sonic team that Yuji Naka was behind Vector Man, I'm pretty sure.
Yeah, you're right. You did shoot and like you would lose parts of your body. A lot like Plok.
Yeah, a lot like Plok. But he was like a more hardcore. He was kind
Totally.
of like
Yeah, he was like a serious guy made out of
This was
balls.
like 90, because this was like 96, right?
Yeah, this is like towards the tail end of Sega Genesis.
These were serious balls.
No, but he was just like, the stage was like dark and grim. And he's like fighting for like the survival of like the future or something like that.
But he's still like a character made of balls. Like it's goofy.
Do you remember the Sonic team's other character?
You mean
Ristar?
Ristar? No. I know of Ristar. I've never played any Ristar games.
It's fun. It's a fun game with the cool mechanic of like you grab stuff, swing around it, and fly to the next thing.
Oh, wow.
It was fun. It's worth a try. But I remember they believed in that character so much that he made it into the Sonic Mega Collection as one of the other games you could play. It was fun. I feel like, and I think Flicky was in there too, the birds.
I would remember Flicky.
There are so many weird mascots.
Crazy.
Oh god, speaking of Flicky.
I love the 90s.
Speaking of Sonic and speaking of treasure, Dynamite Heady.
Dynamite Heady, that's
on the
another
Sega
one.
Genesis was amazing. It was this guy where basically like
A little on the nose with that name.
yeah, he was like would swap heads and he had different power up heads. So it was like a propeller head. He got a propeller head and the propeller head could make him like fly around. And there was like a cannon head, I think, that had a cannon on it. You would shoot cannon, but it was basically just like a platformer with like shooting elements. Like you got certain heads that would shoot things, you would shoot, but otherwise you're jumping around on enemies trying to make it through to the end of the level. But his head would switch for things. And I just remember the main head was like yellow. He had like a pointy cone nose. And he was just always angry.
Yeah, always angry.
And he looked super angry all the time.
As a Nintendo diehard, I would see that stuff and I would be like, oh, look at this stupid Sega stuff. They're trying to be so cool and edgy with their angry characters. It's a goofy cartoon character with angry eyes. And I was like, so edgy. Too edgy for me.
That's what reading about how difficult that game was and reading it about Treasure. And that's what made me always look for, if a game had a reputation for being difficult, or if I played it and it was hard, I'm like, did Treasure make this? And half the time they did.
Yeah.
Really?
Yeah, because Treasure was really good at making very difficult, especially bullet hell games. There was a lot of dodging things in Dynamite Heady.
Well, Adventure Island is Treasure, right?
It's Hudson.
Hudson, that's who I was
Hudson's
thinking of originally.
That's the
Anyway,
B company,
Hudson had a
right?
guy too, and he was a guy in a loincloth.
Master Higgins, another caveman platformer. Master Higgins was actually, he was, yeah, that was his
I didn't even know his name.
So he was conceptualized, one of the team members in Hudson looked like him. So he was a minor celebrity in Japan. And so they made the character based after him. He's just, if you look at a picture of him, it's kind of funny.
Is that why the character looks like you're supposed to be able to recognize him?
Yes! So he's got kind of like this Popeye, kind of lower jaw going thing. And
a pot belly.
Yeah, and he's this bald guy. And if you look at him and you look at Master Higgins, like a picture of both of them, you're like, oh my god, like it is. And we're talking about his head's like 10 pixels wide, but there's this tiny caricature man. And he wore the hat.
Big smile.
He had the Hudson Bee that would take you to a special level.
Oh yeah, it was the Hudson Bee.
Yep.
I have fond memories of that game.
Yeah, Adventure Island had 3 titles on the NES, and they were all pretty
And
fun.
a Super Adventure Island.
Yeah, Super
and a
Adventure
Super Adventure Island 2, which was an RPG.
Wow.
With like power-ups and different like things. I remember reading about it in Nintendo Power. The place for you to put your mascot and hope that kids
Basically, if you go back and look at the cover gallery of Nintendo Power, I'm sure like a solid quarter of them are just different mascots.
You're right.
You know, a final thing I think maybe that ties this all together. We're talking about mascots. We're talking about product placement. We're talking about cavemen.
Okay.
You pull it all together. There's a Super Nintendo game, Home Improvement, based on the sitcom starring Tim Allen of the same name, Home Improvement, the video game.
I was thinking about it. I was thinking about it. And I can't believe you just said it.
Yep. And so you would star as Tim the Toolman Taylor going through the first level, I believe, is a dinosaur themed, and raptors are attacking Tim the Toolman Taylor.
Because the studio next door was filming like a Jurassic Park type movie. That's why you ended up in that.
So you were like using a nail gun, firing at raptors.
So dangerous.
So crazy that game exists. Who would make a video game on Tool Time? I mean, jeez.
Who did make it? I wonder who the developer is.
LJN.
That sounds right.
Had to be. No way it wasn't them.
Where bad ideas went to die.
And they had every license at one point. All of them.
I remember I think they did the WrestleMania WWF game, was it them?
The one that had Doink the Clown
Yeah.
for some reason.
I remember, and Bam Bam Bigelow was in that too, wasn't he?
And that's where I played all the time, Bam Bam Bigelow.
Because he was good in that game. I remember just picking him because also his name sounded cool. I didn't even watch wrestling. I was like, oh, Bam Bam Bigelow is cool.
I just knew his name was Bam Bam Bigelow. He was from Jersey. And I was like, that's close enough to Philly. I'm going to play as Bam Bam Bigelow.
Yep.
Yeah, like a black jumpsuit with orange flames on it.
Yeah.
It was always open at the chest. We had a big pot belly, so it just looked ridiculous.
I also remember he showed up in an episode of Boy Meets World once. It was like someone's dad.
I think I remember.
It was so funny. So funny.
He was the John Cena of his time.
And Corey's mom was like, "Calm down, Lawrence." He's like, "Okay." It just went up. It's funny.
I feel like we could talk about mascots for like 5 episodes. It's nuts.
Okay.
You opened a can of worms.
I
man.
did. I didn't even mean to. But the only mascot you should be concerned with is Tubby,
Hey.
who is the mascot of Tubby Robot, and you saw him in the intro, which we're all very proud of. He was hanging out with my mascot, who doesn't have a name. But Tubby, if you look for him, he's right outside the building, and when you see him, you should come in here and talk to these guys about video games and eat some delicious ice cream. What's new in ice cream world?
Oh, in Ice Cream World, we are, gearing up for, we're doing hand-packed pints now, so you can take Tubby Robot ice cream home to eat at your leisure. And that's brand new for us. We're going to be doing that for a while, until the summer probably. So if you want some delicious ice cream to eat while playing horrible old video games, come on by.
Horrible.
Tim the Toolman Taylor.
It'll be over there.
We're not putting that on Wall of Vision.
No.
Well, thank you guys so much for watching. As always, the show's about you, so let us know what you think about the show, what you want to see, what kind of things you want us to talk about, because we're always happy to talk about all things video game and all things ice cream. There you have it for this episode. I am Terry from Terry Leahy Films.
I'm Chris.
I'm Steve.
Keep playing games, guys. We'll see you soon.